There is a version of you that exists only in the future. This version has already started, has already pushed through the first uncomfortable days when nothing comes out right, and the gap between what you imagined and what actually exists on the page is wide enough to be humiliating, has already been bad at it long enough to get better, has already found out, one way or another, what happens when you actually try. Gabriel has been living adjacent to that version of himself for 11 months, not avoiding it exactly. Moving toward it, in fact, consistently, deliberately, with systems and calendars and the specific organizational infrastructure of someone who takes this seriously. The Notes app is full. The time blocks are on the calendar. He has read the books. He has listened to the podcasts. He has restructured his morning routine 3 times in the direction of better conditions for the work, and the project has not moved in 4 months. This is not the story of someone who doesn't care. This is the story of someone who cares so much and in such a specific way that caring has become the mechanism that keeps the work from happening. If you have ever had a version of this, a project, a conversation, a decision that keeps not happening despite your genuine intention that it happen, this video is not going to give you a better system. It is going to show you exactly what is actually happening. And that diagnosis, if you can stay with it honestly, is more useful than any system you have not yet tried. Here is what the research actually says about procrastination. Not the version that makes it a time management problem, the version that makes it something more specific, and once you see it clearly, more recognizable. Fushia Siroas, a psychologist at Durham University who has spent more than 2 decades studying why people delay, reached a conclusion that most productivity conversations skip entirely. Procrastination is not primarily a problem of poor time management. It is a problem of emotion regulation. When Siroas and her colleagues examined what was actually happening in the moments before people avoided work they had committed to doing, the consistent finding was not distraction, not poor planning, not insufficient motivation. It was the anticipation of a specific negative emotional state associated with the task, and the automatic, largely unconscious decision to avoid the task in order to avoid the feeling. The avoidance works. In the short term, the relief is real. The negative emotional state that was anticipated does not arrive. The nervous system registers the avoidance as a success, and that registration, that neurological reward, makes the avoidance more likely the next time the same anticipation appears. Timothy Feichel at Carleton University extended this finding into something more uncomfortable. The tasks most consistently procrastinated are not the boring ones. They are the ones that feel threatening to the self. Tasks where the outcome would carry information about who you are, what you are capable of, whether the version of yourself you have been protecting is real. Read that again slowly. The tasks most consistently procrastinated are the ones where the outcome would carry information about who you are. Not the emails, not the administrative work. The project that has been open for 11 months. Gabriel is not avoiding because he lacks discipline. He is avoiding because every time he opens that file, his nervous system correctly identifies what is at stake. Not the project's success or failure, but the survival of a particular version of himself that has not yet been tested and therefore has not yet been found insufficient. While the project remains unfinished, that version is intact. The version of Gabriel who could do something that matters if he really tried. That version is still possible, untested, preserved. The moment he tries, and the result is ordinary, that version is at risk. The procrastination is not a failure of will. It is a success of protection. And it will continue to succeed with increasing efficiency until you name exactly what it is protecting, which is something most productivity advice never asks you to do. Marcus Aurelius was 22 years younger than his co-emperor Lucius Verus when he became the most powerful person in the known world. He had not sought the position. had, by several accounts, genuinely preferred the life of a philosopher to the life of an emperor. And what he wrote in the Meditations, the private journals he kept across 2 decades of governing, was not primarily about governance. It was about the daily problem of being a person who knows what they should do, and still, in the specific conditions of that morning, that conversation, that moment of resistance, finds it difficult to do it. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. Not as an emperor. Not as a philosopher. As a human being for whom showing up to the work is always structurally an act of choice against the pull of comfort." He wrote in another passage that I return to more consistently than almost any other. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This is the Stoic answer to the protection problem. Not a motivational line. A precise philosophical position about what it costs to preserve the untested version of yourself. The one that requires the work to remain undone in order to stay intact. The cost is the life that is not being lived, while the protection holds. Epictetus, who had every external reason to build his identity around protection, and who chose instead to build it around what he called the proairesis, the faculty of deliberate choice, wrote, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens." What is in Gabriel's power is not the outcome. It is not whether the project is good. It is not whether the version of himself that the project reveals will be the version he hoped for. None of that is in his power. What is in his power is the next sentence, the next hour, the next specific decision to open the file and add something, anything, that was not there before. The Stoics were not asking for courage. They were asking for a precise reorientation of what you consider the relevant stakes. The relevant stakes are not the outcome. The relevant stakes are the quality of the choice available right now. That reorientation does not eliminate the fear. It changes what the fear is protecting, from a version of yourself that must stay untested to be preserved, to a version of yourself that is built, one honest choice at a time, from what you actually do, rather than what you intend to do. Those are very different versions, and only one of them is real. Here is the honest diagnosis of Gabriel's situation. Not the version that is easy to hear, the accurate one. Gabriel does not have a productivity problem. He has an identity problem disguised as a productivity problem. The organizational systems are real. The intention is real. The time blocks on the calendar are real. None of that is the issue. The issue is that every productivity system Gabriel has built is operating in service of a version of himself that requires the project to remain in the planning stage. Because the planning stage is the only stage where the version of himself he is protecting is still plausible. In the planning stage, the project can still be anything. The version of Gabriel who creates something that matters is still available. The gap between what he imagines and what he can actually execute has not yet been revealed. Every system, every restructured morning routine, every new organizational framework is, and this is the part that is difficult to say without it sounding like an accusation, another way of being a person who takes the project seriously without generating the evidence that would tell him whether he is the person who can actually do it. This is not unique to Gabriel. It is, according to Feichel's research, one of the most consistent patterns in chronic procrastination among people who are otherwise functional, organized, and capable in other areas of their lives. The capability in other areas is part of the mechanism. It maintains the plausibility of the protected version, while the specific domain that threatens it remains safely incomplete. And here is what makes this pattern particularly durable. The people inside it are not in denial about the procrastination. They know, they feel it, they talk about it, sometimes with considerable self-awareness, in conversations that are themselves a form of processing the avoidance without requiring the avoidance to end. Naming the pattern is not the solution. Gabriel has named the pattern. He could describe it with more precision than most. The solution is something different. And it begins with a question that the productivity conversation almost never asks. What are you protecting? Not rhetorically. Specifically, what is the exact version of yourself that would be at risk if you opened the file right now and produced something that was worse than you hoped? For Gabriel, the honest answer, not the defensible answer, not the answer he would give in a conversation where the answer would be evaluated, but the one that arrives in the 6 a.m. silence before the day has opinions about who he should be, is this: the version of himself that is capable of making something that matters. The version that justifies the years of caring about design, about craft, about the gap between how things are and how they could be. If the project is ordinary, that version of himself becomes retroactively uncertain. And the uncertainty is not about the project. It is about whether the self that has been carrying this project as a marker of a particular kind of person was ever the self he actually was, or a story he told himself in the absence of evidence. That is what is being protected, not time, not comfort. A story about who he is that has never been tested by the conditions that would confirm or deny it. Seneca wrote in a letter that is 2,000 years old and still more precise about this than most contemporary psychology. Omnia, lucili, aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est. Everything, Lucilius, belongs to others. Time alone is ours. What he was pointing at is not a time management principle. It is a philosophical position about the specific cost of protection. Every hour the project remains in the planning stage, fully intended, carefully organized, sincerely meant, is an hour that belongs to the story rather than to the life. And the story does not require completion. The life does. The hour that Gabriel sits down, opens the file, and produces something that is imperfect and real is worth, in Stoic accounting, more than 11 months of sincere intention. Not because the imperfect thing is better than the intended perfect thing. Because the imperfect real thing is the only kind of thing that is actually yours. Here is what the practice looks like. Not the productivity system. The practice that addresses what is actually happening. The first move is the one that costs the most and takes the least time. Open the file. Set a timer for 25 minutes. Produce something that is deliberately not your best work. Not accidentally mediocre, deliberately. Your only instruction for those 25 minutes is to create something that you would not want anyone to see. Something that reveals the gap between what you imagined and what you can currently execute. Something that proves, in the most concrete terms available, that the protected version of yourself, the one who could do this perfectly if the conditions were ever right, is not the version that shows up on day one. This is not a trick. This is the specific intervention that Feichel's research identifies as the most effective disruption of the protection cycle. Not better planning, not stronger commitment, not a more rigorous system. Direct, deliberate exposure to the feared evidence, structured so that the feared evidence is the intended outcome rather than a potential failure. When the timer ends, do not evaluate what you made. Close the file. Come back tomorrow. The first session is not about the work. It is about proving to your nervous system that the evidence arrived, that you survived it, and that the version of yourself that exists on the other side of the evidence is, whatever its limitations, more real and more functional than the one you were protecting. Do this for 5 consecutive days before introducing any evaluation. The second practice is the one the Stoics would recognize immediately. Every morning, before opening any device, write one sentence completing this prompt. Today, I will act as the person I am building, not the person I am protecting. One sentence. Specific to today. Not about the project in the abstract, about the one next action available in the next available hour. What the person you are building does today, in these conditions, with these tools. Marcus Aurelius called this the prosauche, the continuous attention to what the ruling faculty is actually choosing rather than what it is telling itself it intends to choose. The intention and the choice are not the same thing. The practice of writing the sentence is the practice of making them closer. Not identical, closer. Every day, a little closer. Not because the fear disappears, because the habit of choosing despite it becomes, through repetition, more available than the habit of protecting against it. Epictetus described this as the discipline of action, the third of the three Stoic disciplines, the one that follows the disciplines of desire and assent. You have examined what you want. You have examined the impulses that arise. Now you act, in accordance with what you have identified, in these conditions, imperfectly, without waiting for the conditions to be better. The conditions are never better. This is not pessimism. It is the Stoic observation that the version of you waiting for better conditions is the version that will never act, because the conditions are always, structurally, the ones available right now. And the ones available right now are always sufficient for the one next action. The third practice is the one that changes the underlying structure, not just the daily behavior. Once per week, 30 minutes, physical notebook. You write the honest answer to this question. What did I do this week as the person I am building? And what did I do as the person I am protecting? 2 columns, no judgment. Data, not a self-criticism exercise, a calibration exercise. The same exercise Marcus Aurelius was running in the Meditations, not berating himself for the distance between the value and the behavior, but noting it with precision so that the next week's choices are more informed than the previous week's. The column on the left, what you did as the person you are building, will be shorter than you want it to be in the early weeks. This is correct. It is not a sign that the practice is failing. It is the baseline from which the practice works. Over 6 to 8 weeks of honest weekly accounting, 2 things happen that no productivity system produces on its own. First, the column on the left grows. Not because you are trying harder, because the weekly accounting makes the choice between the 2 columns visible in real time, which changes the default at the moment of decision. When you know you are going to write it down on Sunday, Thursday's choice is less automatic. Second, and more important, you begin to see the specific triggers that activate the protection mechanism. The particular conditions, the types of work, the emotional states, the external contexts under which the protected version reliably takes over. That visibility is the most valuable thing the practice produces, because what is visible can be chosen differently. What remains unconscious cannot. I want to tell you something honest about what happens on the other side of this. The project does not become easy. The fear does not go away. The gap between what you imagine and what you can currently execute does not close as fast as you want it to. What changes is your relationship to all of it. The version of Gabriel who has been producing imperfectly, consistently, for 6 weeks, is not the version that was being protected. It is something different, something that has been tested by the conditions it actually faced, rather than preserved by the conditions that were never allowed to arrive. That version knows something the protected version never could. What actually happens when you try. Not the catastrophic outcome the protection was built to prevent. The real outcome, which is almost always more survivable and more instructive and more generative than the anticipation allowed for. Seneca wrote this in a way that I find more useful than almost anything else in the productivity literature. Per aspera ad astra, through difficulty to the stars, was not his line, but the principle behind it was. The path to what you are capable of runs directly through the evidence of what you currently cannot do. There is no route around it, There is only the choice of how long you spend building systems designed to delay the entry point. Gabriel is capable of more than 11 months of careful planning. So are you. Not because you have finally found the right system. Because the system was never the problem. The problem was the story about who you needed to be before you were allowed to begin. That story ends the moment you open the file, set the timer, and produce the first imperfect thing. Not after this video. Now.